Welcome to the next episode of Smarketing. This is episode number 4. I am Janet Fenner, president of Defined Marketing, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Yaron Zuzman.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning. Are you back in the States, Yaron?
No, it's evening for me. It's Friday evening too.
Oh, okay. You threw me off with the whole morning.
No. I'm a nomad. Every episode is in a different place.
All right, so we're
today
still
I'm in Jerusalem. Last time I was in Tel Aviv. Today I'm in Jerusalem.
Okay, awesome. All right, this is what we're going to discuss today. Your superpower. Everybody's got a superpower in business, and you've got to figure out what that is and how to use it. So, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. I worked with an incredible mentor called Frank DeFino. I'm sure a lot of people in this industry do know him. And his superpower was the power of inception. So what he would do is he would actually make a comment, drop an idea of how he wanted to get things to happen. And then within a couple of weeks or a week later, all of a sudden, management would come to him and say, hey, we have this idea. It's blah, blah, blah. And it was his idea that he had planted. And then all of a sudden, he would basically sit back and say, that's a great idea. Let's go ahead and do it. He didn't need to take credit. He didn't need to say anything. But I was picked up on it. I was looking at him. I'm like, that was your idea 2 weeks ago. And he was like, I know. The point of the fact was that he was making things happen the way they needed to happen without having to take credit for it. So superhero power, some people in sales, is the networking. I know someone who works really, really well, and his superpower basically is knowing how to develop the deal or knowing where the opportunity is. And that, to me, I'm like an opportunist, but knowing exactly how to leverage the opportunity was this guy's superhero. So it's definitely interesting when you meet somebody who does sales or marketing or whatever other function, engineering, whatever in our industry, what their superpower is. So Yaron, with that, talk to me about your superpower. Oh wait, hold on. We have superhero gear.
Oh yeah, you got superhero gear. I got superhero flip flops for my dear son here that I stole from the pool. But yeah, so first of all, about Frank, actually, I met Frank a couple of times. Great man, and I do think you're absolutely right there. He was very, very unique in the way he handled business and a great mentor, I'm sure. In terms of my superpower, I really don't know. You know, that's I think there's my superpower is working hard. I think is figuring out that I'm not always the smartest guy in the room, so I got to work harder than most. So
yeah,
I think
I got to tell you, one of the things that I think your superpower is you know, you're very well versed in technology. You're very well versed at startups and figuring out how to make that company go to the next level. Or your superpower basically, I think, is startups, is knowing how to grow a startup or knowing how to leverage that technology into where it needs to go.
Yeah, and again, it's a superpower. So let's talk about so I believe in, like I said, I think one of it, it came from working hard. It came from gaining experience, right? And so that's one of the things that, you know, I think one of the things that comes, you develop your superpower by practicing what you see is you're good at, right? And I think if I go back in my career where I started and then what was called at the time management training program in a very large IT consulting firm, I think they matched us with what they thought our superpower was, which they didn't know what they hired it from. They hired us for multiple roles, and then through different tests and other things, they matched us to, I was matched into, although I did rounds in all the departments, I was matched into a sales department. And then I started developing, call it the craft, right? So they were very good at sending you to training and bringing trainers in and coaching you and things like that. So I think that's where I developed. And through that, actually moving into startups later in a relatively young age and really not moving from the startups since then. And I always laugh every time I get some large company approach with a job. I'm like, no, not gonna happen, you know, so I think you're absolutely right on, but again, I'm not sure if it's a superpower, but I think it's what what I do well is absolutely is understanding if a technology can be successful in the market. And again, you can't be right 100% of the time. And if it is, how to bring it and grow it in the market.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely 100% right. So I know that, superpowers they're important to pay attention to. I know we call them superpowers, but it's just interesting to know how to work your vertical, how to work your end user. So knowing what you do best and working on what you do best to develop that, because everyone's best is a little bit different across the board. They could.
Yeah, I think another thing that I always say I'm very proud of, and I think it came from making a lot of mistakes and getting it wrong at the beginning and then crafting it, is really being able to hire well. Which I believe is a superpower, because again, having something that to hire the right people, and not only to hire the right people, but to hire the right people for the right job and build the right team. I think it's at the end of the day something that makes your life much easier. And again, through a lot of trials, tribulations, mistakes, and almost taking company bankrupt, I think today something I can say is. And again, you're never immune to mistake, but today something I can say that I'm proud on the teams I was able to build, because it was always very, 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 very cool teams. They're very good teams, and they're very loyal teams, which is, I think, super important.
And that's, you're 100% right. Loyalty goes a long way, but also when you give into your team, when you basically invest in them, loyalty goes even further. So for sure. And that's great. And you still work at what your superpower is and learning about, how to develop people, how to train them, what's new processes, what can we put in place, what makes it easier for them to sell. So you keep developing that superpower, which is really great, and that's very important for people just to understand what they have and how to build on it and how to make it even better and better and better and really mature their knack that they have, or their really their calling, you know what I mean? Because someone can be great at technology but terrible at selling. I've seen it before where somebody goes into the field and they seem very, very knowledgeable, but they just don't click with their customer to be able to sell.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So you have to figure out how to take what you have and leverage it, where you say, well, maybe I need somebody else to come in and help me sell it. And that's something that I always found, that sometimes I've been in positions where I've helped people sell. I don't get the commission. I just do it because I want to go ahead and expand the company. And sometimes people will say to you, oh yeah, I got it from here, I'm okay. I'm like, why would you cut me out if I'm helping you make your commission? You know what I mean? Understand that it's okay. Leave your ego at home. That's another thing. I'm like, there's all superpower. And then I also want to talk about leaving your ego at home. A lot of this industry is driven on ego, and leaving that at home sometimes is great. Becoming approachable. Yeah, you can be one of the top leading companies out there, the top leading salesperson out there, but the humble part goes a very long way because it makes you more approachable. Can you imagine just how much more successful you would be if you left your ego at home?
Yeah, absolutely. And that I agree 110%. I think leaving your ego at home, or not having not everybody has an ego, but not letting your ego drive you, I think, is something that is extremely important to being successful in the industry. And it also, what it creates, it really creates more efficient and better teams, right? And we spoke about it, I think, in the first time. And talking about hiring well, right? And one of the things that I always wanted to create competition within the team, right? Because you drive the whole team forward.
Sure.
But it was always friendly competition. It was always sales meeting trash talk that leads you to really go. We're one team, right? We're one team against the world, not competing with each other. And I have seen a lot of politics in a lot of organizations where you have those ego-driven people that they don't care if the company loses a $3 million deal if they get the $1 million deal, right? And that's, I think, is the wrong and the not healthy approach for ego-driven sales individuals. And again, taking that, not saying be super competitive, but don't leave your ego at home. I like that expression.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're right. Competition is great. Competition is fantastic. I mean, I love putting special promotions out there where they compete against each other, but you're right. You got to keep it friendly and you got to keep it definitely humble. So it's great. But rewarding people for their good efforts or their self efforts are important for sure. Everybody deserves a pat on the back every once in a while. You know what I mean? Whether they're wearing a cape or not, they deserve the pat on the back. You know what I'm saying? And as far as ego, I mean, I'm a Mets fan. Do you think I brag about that everywhere? No, I'm humble about it. You know what I mean?
You have to, but that's not an excuse.
Talk about loyalty right there. That's huge. All right. And then now let's go ahead and talk about taking credit and giving credit. So when you are the top of your sales organization and you have a lot of salespeople underneath you, when do you take credit? When do you give credit, Yaron? And this is something that I definitely want to hear an answer from you, because you have driven a lot of sales team. You have been involved in this, and it's important. So go ahead on that question.
So I think, and I had a mentor that always told me, when you blame somebody for something, you have one hand and you have to treat it yours. Always think about how much this thing is your fault. And I think it's the same thing goes to when you take credit, right? And again, as a leader, I think it's much more important to give credit than to take credit for what you're doing. And again, I've seen people that were actually relatively bad at managing downward, but were very good at managing upward, because it was always me. I did well, and they broadcast it to the manager organization. It's all them, and their team is irrelevant. They can be replaceable. I think the teams that are more successful are the teams where, and by the way, it goes back to leave your dagger at home, right? Because if you don't have the ego, you don't care about getting the credit as long as things get done and revenue comes in, right? So for at least, I believe that it's much more important to give credit and less take your, basically come to people and say, hey, it's me, I did that, I brought this deal. You can be involved in a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the more you make your team successful, the more you're going to be successful. And that's how it works. And I think also going back, everything connects, but going back to hiring, it's something that I try to look at all the time. Is that going to be somebody who's going to be just focused on himself, or it's going to be somebody that is
Let's talk about that really quick, the hiring part. Here's what I see all the time, okay? A lot of times managers tend to hire people that don't threaten them. So you see this a lot in our industry. People hire people that are not a threat to their job, which doesn't help their situation. It doesn't help their company. If you're hiring because you still want to keep, you always, my opinion is
I think it's the stupidest thing you can ever do is hire somebody that can't threaten your job.
You definitely, I'm the opinion that you got to hire somebody who's going to be like better than you, that can make you look like the superhero. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. Let's go ahead and you're going to look good.
Absolutely, all day long. I would hire people that are better than me at all day long. And I think from that point, there's at least, and again, I've never worried about, hey, if I hire this guy, he might be better than me, and management may think he's going to take the job, or if it's part of, never. It's never even a consideration. And on the contrary, if I can find somebody that would take what we pay as a startup, which is a lot of the time is less than market rate, with a much better upside on the other side, that I think is a superstar, there's no doubt about it, he's getting hired. And that's all day long. So I think I would never, and I think it's really bad management to look at who you hire and say, oh, I need somebody that won't threaten me, because I think you're going to build mediocrity all across the organization.
Right. I think it's really important to pay attention to that, because I know that if you hire somebody who's a rock star or superhero, they're going to make you look good. They're going to make your team look good, and it's going to just advance you even more. And it's really important to not feel threatened at all. hire people that threaten you. That's great. You know what I mean? In a positive way, not in a
all day long.
So yeah.
Really,
and then there's also, you get those people who basically, I call them cancer causers, that are in the organization who everything's I did this, I did that, I did that. Oh, well, why is he getting credit, or why is she getting credit? I did this. It's I. And that I really needs to turn to a we. It's a we situation. The people who are an I are always, complaining about, well, why are they doing this? Or why, the whole, problem within either customer service, either, sales, marketing, engineering, product, whatever division that you're in, there's always tends to be that one person that's always the cancer causer. That's like, why can't you just be positive and be a team? Be a part of the we, not a part of the I.
Absolutely. And I think, we have the same saying in Hebrew. I didn't know you said it in English, but it says like basically a cancer causer in the organization, that it's, that if they're effective, they spread, right? So they get everybody else in the same negativity, and just creating that negativity on everything. And with that, that's one thing that I learned from one of my mentors early in the career as well, is loyalty is super important. I'm not saying loyalty in terms of what your boss tells you to do and that's it. Is, for me, loyalty is argue the heck out of it internally, right? We have weekly calls. If there's a policy you don't agree with, you can disagree with me all day long, and I can disagree with my manager all day long. But if we agreed on a path, even if I did not agree with it, I'm now loyal to the company. I'm loyal to the decision, right? And that's because what I see a lot happening, where I think it's also cancerous, is a company decision was made, and it can be right, it can be wrong, and then somebody from the company is outside and he's like, oh, that was the stupidest decision we ever made, right? And I think that's one thing that from a company perspective, you should have argued it inside. But once the decision was made, most of the time, I believe, okay, you are with the company, you always have a choice. And I'm not talking about ethics decisions, right? I'm talking about sales strategy, things like that. When it's a decision was made, and you have to be loyal to that decision. And that's one thing that talking about cancer is creating that negativity of the company because you don't agree with something that was done. Fight it internal, right? Fight the fight all the time, argue all the time. Another thing about hiring, never hire yes people, right? Because then you're going to stay stupid. I always say, if you hire yes men, you're going to stay stupid, because they're going to say yes for everything you say. You're going to feel you're smart, but you're really stupid. And that's one thing that in terms of that hiring and building organization, always look for the people who will challenge you. And you're wrong, they're going to tell you you're wrong.
You're right. I worked with.
I'm wrong. I said I'm wrong. You said I'm right.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you know what? You're wrong all the time, but I just let it slide. No, I worked with, as a perfect example, I worked with this one woman who was amazing at human resources in my prior job, phenomenal. And she came across hurdles time and time again. I mean, we're talking about every single day there was something different or something changed, or a staff or whatever. And you know what? She was amazing at being able to take it and going, all right, let's do it. Let's figure it out. And her attitude was crazy amazing, that she could have easily gone on the dark side and said, what are they doing? Why are we doing this? Or what? Because it's always easier to complain. But her attitude was just so amazing. It was such a can-do attitude that she's like, hey, let's just do it. And she really pushed that forward in everybody. And she really showed the patience and the understanding and the, hey, these things happen kind of thing. And even though it happened quite often, it was something that happened, all the time. And she was able to take it on. And it was very impressive on how she did it. So kudos to her. And I always told her that. So definitely always give a compliment. Always give a compliment when a compliment's due. It's definitely worth it. And then the next thing I want to talk about also is, how do you have your voice heard? Sometimes it's very difficult in organizations to have your voice heard, especially in bigger organizations where you have a lot of layers and you have great ideas that come in, and you have different methods to approach a situation, and you're always telling them or telling the group, here's, I think, how we should do it. Here's the way we should go about it. And nobody listens, or somebody does listen, and all of a sudden they take your idea, and all of a sudden your idea becomes somebody else's idea. And you're just like, wait a second, that was, how do you get your voice to be heard? What is your advice on that?
So I always put a suggestions box right up top of the shredder, so people know that basically as soon as they put it in, it's going to go to the shredder. No, I'm just kidding. But so I think that's what I think communication, and that has to come from management, and I think good companies do it very well. I think communication has to flow down all the time. I think, and again, I don't know if it's true till today, but I think Jeff Bezos at one time, everybody knew his email, and they said there was staff that could read every email that he was getting, right? So I'm not saying that should be the strategy, but I think that's a good example of how things operate. So I think it doesn't matter the size of the organization. I think every employee should have a voice, and if an employee doesn't have a voice, he's probably in the wrong organization. I think there's many ways to do that. So again, coming from more of a startup culture, there's really no barriers to communication levels, right? You can always come and talk to anybody in that organization. I think as the organization grows, there has to be communication channels that are built, and it's being built through, okay, if there's a leader, there's a team leader, he's got a, and there has to be meetings that include all these people to get ideas. And I think the most important thing is, what do you do with ideas, right? Because I've been in a company that grew from 4 people to over 200, 300 people. And then it was getting, okay, it used to be very easy to communicate here, and then people bring ideas. Somebody tells them, oh, it's a great idea. They write it down, but nothing happens. So then people shut up because they don't care anymore. They lose their passion. They say nothing happens, right? So I think beside the fact of getting heard, I think management actually has to do something with what they're hearing, right? Even if they're not adopting an idea, there should be communication. Okay, we looked at it, it's not going to be adapted, and those are the reason why it's not going to be adapted, right? But not every idea that comes up is a genius idea.
You're right, and communication is key. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, even in different departments, it's always great. I always found success when you invited different divisions to kind of brainstorm. If you wanted to go ahead and have a strategy, and I recommend this to any company, is every single year have a strategy meeting that everybody has a voice. Have a board conference, have your engineering there, your marketing there, your sales there, everybody who makes up the facets of your different, of your company, and have them all there and say, hey, this is the way we're going to go forward. This is a brainstorming session here. We want to hear what you have to say. Not only a brainstorming session, but I love it when companies say, hey, have like a suggestion box, not like a complaint box, but a suggestion box of like, the newest idea is going to win a prize. That's always awesome. You know what I mean? Because people are full of ideas and be like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and submit my idea, see what they think, see how it develops. So I love companies that say, we'll pay, we're going to do a competition. The best idea of the year wins, and do something important, do something to that effect that really,
absolutely. We've actually done that. We've done that on product names as well. So let's say we released a new product line, right? And we released a new product line, and it was a value line product line for cameras, let's say. So we would do a competition through the whole company. It doesn't matter, from the receptionist to R&D to sales and everything. And everybody submits a name of what the product should look like. And whoever wins a weekend with the whole family somewhere in Cancun or whatever it is, right? And actually most product names that were chosen by employees, and not necessarily R&D people, not necessarily product people. There's one guy out of
and those are people who have the freshest set of eyes sometimes.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can even raffle off vacation days. Say, hey, we'll give you an extra 2 days of vacation for a great idea, or we can give you, some PTO. Or a gift card. You can definitely do it to anything, but product names, new products, new product ideas, new product processes, have them involved, because when people start getting involved, they get a sense of pride. Like, I've done that. I was a part of that. You know what I mean? And loyalty right there goes a super long way on retaining staff, because the turnover is non-existent anymore. You know, I've been with companies that the turnovers are like, wow, what? You know, and so, and pay your people well. You know what I mean? That's another thing. You see growth, make sure you make your employees grow with your company. They're the reason that they caused you growth. You know, definitely award people. Don't leave them behind.
Absolutely. But one thing I've learned through the years is money is, yes, a lot of the salespeople are coin operated, but money is a short-term motivator for a lot of people. And people will not leave a job if they're extremely satisfied, if they're doing well, if they feel they're getting heard, if they love the company and they love what they do, even if they get a higher offer. And I'm also an example. I've gotten much higher offers when I was working for startups for salary, but when I looked at the job at the end of the day, I said, will I have the impact I have for what I'm doing now?
Right.
And I think so with that, I think it's not unique. I think money is a short-term motivator. Of course, there's the basic that you have to make, but beyond that, I think a lot of it, if you can find the people that are not just operated by, you know, another 30, 50 grand that they make, but more of the overall experience that they have with a company, you're going to build a winning team, because people,
right.
it's going to be a team.
Like, you're right. And you know what, sense of family too. That's
don't underpay for that. I'm not saying
right. No, absolutely. Like,
but,
sense of family was important. You know what I mean? That's definitely is important in any aspect, to make sure that you get together with the team to celebrate the year, or to have a yearly kickoff or a quarterly kickoff. Or I know Hanwha did this very well, and they still do. And sense of family, I mean, I'm still, you know, in touch with everyone at Hanwha, and I still, you know, anything that they ever ask me for, you got it. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of bond that you build being in the company. And that's something that's really important, to make sure that if you meet with your staff on a quarterly basis, or, you know, bi-yearly basis, you have the opportunity to go ahead and bond with them a little bit further, and show them that they're a part of this whole thing. Specifically when I haven't had enough coffee, I don't think, is the fact that
I had enough, you know, for you.
I'm like, so it's definitely, especially when your people are remote, you know, to bring them into town and kind of just, you know, talk to them about, hey, here's our direction, here's our focus. That's super important, because it definitely does go a long way. It makes
so let's bring it a little bit into reality, into today, right? So we're moving into a world that I think is going to be very different, even post-pandemic, right? A lot of how do you build that? So one of the things that I always liked working for small companies is the idea lab, right? As you're in the kitchen, you're talking to somebody, everybody has an impact, and everybody. It's not going to be the same right now with COVID and what's going on, and really offices are not going to be as offices, right? So how do you build that camaraderie? How do you build that team spirit? How do you build that without a physical office, right? That's something that I think would be a challenge for a lot of companies. But again, it goes back to what we said last time, that it might be also an opportunity.
Right. No, you're right. And I think it's more of communication. I mean, we have the Security Sandbox happy hour happening every Friday, right? When we get together and we discuss things. Just having Zoom calls on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or something.
What's that? I never got invited to a Security Sandbox. What's
Did that? I say, what? You know what? You and this whole entire Tel Aviv timeline, I don't know. You know,
it's fair enough.
There's going to have to be an invite in Yaron's inbox soon. So if anybody's watching to this point, if you want to go ahead and get an invitation to the Industry Security Sandbox happy hour, I tell you what, I have made connections and networking so much more now than before, only because we get new people showing up every single week, and you get introduced to new people and new companies, and it's awesome. So definitely looking for a networking event, that's the way to go. It's a plug, I suppose. I mean, not that we're benefiting anything on it. It's just networking. And I think that's my superpower, is networking or connections, or is definitely bringing people together kind of thing. So to summarize, let's go ahead and go into summarization on this. All right. Find your superpower, dig deep, or ask somebody. Ask one of your, good colleagues as to what you think my superpower is. And definitely think about that, because it's something that you can definitely build on, you can definitely work on. And if you develop it enough, that's something that you can really use to your advantage. So that's the number one thing. Also, leave your ego at home, for sure. I mean, that's definitely something that, you know, I recommend to everybody. And then the other thing is taking credit, giving credit. Know when to give credit. Give more credit than take more credit. So the more credit that you give, the more that you build up your staff, the better you're going to look. The better you're going to look like a superhero. And then as far as also turning me into we, that's something that's super important that needs to happen. And get your voice heard. Go ahead, Magos. Speaking of getting your voice heard, let me hear your voice.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm Magos here. No, I think absolutely. I think this is extremely important. And another thing that we spoke about today is listen. I always say, and I said it in the first episode, 1 mouth, 2 ears, use it in that ratio. And I think it's super important also when you talk to your employees, when you talk to your partners, it's always, I think, you get much more by listening than by talking, and that's one of the most important things that I think. So I think also, like you said, learn what your superhero, your strongest trait is, and just practice and work it. Because again, you have to keep on working on it. It's not the fact that you're good at it means that. At the end of the day, for anything that you do in life, my belief is in order to do this much better, you have to work that much harder. So I think even if you think your superpower is going to get you through, don't work it, practice it, do a lot of things. Like I said, don't give more credit than you take for yourself. Always super important. And beyond that, just have fun. Always have fun in what you do. I think the most important thing, and somebody I once asked a guy, when did you know it was a startup that started, went public, made, and I told him, when did you know it was time to leave? And he said, when it stopped being fun, right? So that's, I think, is something that you always have to think. And
you're right. And you find a lot of people, just really quick on that, you find a lot of people complain. You have companies that have a lot of complainers, like, oh, I hate this job, blah, 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 blah. You know what? You do have the right to leave. You have the right to leave. Only you can change a situation. And if you keep complaining, you actually have the right to leave. So you're right on that.
All right, with that, it is not a security happy hour, but it's 4:40 in the afternoon on a Friday, so it's some kind of an happy hour.
You're getting ready for it. Next week, we're going to talk about your brand and how important your brand is, just as important as your company's brand. So we'll discuss a little bit about that.
I'll be the student here because I got to work on that. I don't even know how to post on LinkedIn, so I'm going to learn.
All right, that sounds good. So we're going to talk a little bit about branding next week and going more into the whole marketing part of the whole Smarketing part. Okay, so awesome. So I appreciate your time, Yaron. Again, it was great seeing you. Have a great night, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Wonderful week. Bye.
All right, thanks. Bye.